Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Happy Farm Life. My name is Sarah Richard. I am a PGY1 pharmacy resident at a pediatric facility, and today we're going to be talking about how to nail your interviews and get the residency of your dreams. Today, I am with my best friend, Kelsey Zakowskis, and I will let her introduce herself.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, my name is Kelsey. I am a PGY1 resident at an academic medical center, and I'm here with Sarah to help answer some of your questions about residency.
So before we jump into any of the questions, I do want to just say that Kelsey and I, these are our own opinions. We are not getting this from our programs or anybody else. We are not being paid to say these things. This is just what we've experienced, and so you may have a very different experience on your residency interviews. Just keep that in mind as we go through all of these questions, and okay, we'll just jump right in.
Our next question is, I was wondering what advice you had about how to handle the dinner after the interview. So I will answer this one first. Actually, I didn't have any dinners after my interview. I have been in this experience with interviewing for PGY2s, but as a PGY1, I didn't have any dinners after an interview. I had lunches during the interviews, and then there was sometimes a dinner before the interview the night before. So I can ad-lib on those, but I can't really 100% speak on a dinner after the interview. So for a lunch during the interview, it's just critically important to understand that this is still part of the interview. Although it's a more relaxed scenario and situation, just ensure you're still being professional and asking questions about the program or the place that the program is located in, what the residents do for fun, their favorite aspects of the residency, and maybe what their research project is, just a bunch of different questions, because most likely on the lunches you'll be with just the residents. And then if you're able to go to any of the dinners the night before, that's also an opportunity to get to know the residents and see if you would fit in with them really well prior to the interview, because that can just add another checkbox to your residency program list when you're going through the interview process. So I would again ask questions, general questions about the program and about the place where the program is located the night before as well, just kind of trying to get an understanding of the dynamic. You can ask a little bit more lax questions in these situations since they are a little bit more informal, but just always remember you are in an interview at all times.
So I also didn't have any formal dinners that were like set ahead of time. I did go out with the residents on multiple different interviews because, again, I like to ask about food, and so sometimes they would just invite me to go eat with them. So in those situations, it was definitely less formal, but you also have to remember that they're going to be in that ranking meeting, so you don't want to do anything too crazy. But it is a good opportunity to get to know them. I think the biggest thing to do is be yourself, but be your professional self. Like kind of like Kelsey said, that's still part of the interview, even if it's not said that it's part of the interview for breakfasts or lunch or anytime you're eating. Just continue to be very professional during those times and you'll be fine.
Awesome. Our next question is an interesting question because it's something I feel like we all are trying to deal with and figure out how to deal with appropriately. How do I deal with the life crippling anxiety? So Sierra, take it away.
Actually, I'm glad this is being asked because this is such the reality of this time of year. Everybody is so stressed out. Every single person that's going through is very, very anxious. I don't know that you're going to meet anybody who is not. And I think that as a resident, you continue that feeling for quite a bit of time. So I have started taking a very different approach, and I am the least anxious I have been since before I interviewed for residency right now, which is I'm getting up at 5 a.m., which sounds terrible, but I am making a priority to work out in the morning and just take a moment and just breathe. So I do like a meditation in the morning, and I just think that that's really helped me. I was never the person to do that, and I was always like, I can't make my mind turn off. I still don't, but it's closer to where I was. I'm not saying that you're going to be able to work out before your interviews or anything, but whatever it is for you that's going to help you just take time away from all of this, you need to get away. You need to do something that gets your mind completely off of this. Whatever that is for you, that may be like binging Netflix, that's fine too. You just need to get away from all of this craziness sometimes and be okay with that. Don't feel guilty for doing that.
Yeah, I think anxiety is definitely something that's we all deal with, and it's difficult to handle, especially when you're on residency interviews. The way that I handled anxiety with residency interviews and going into them is I did a lot of preparation about the program. So I went in knowing a lot about the programs. I had a list of questions I wanted to ask for the program director, the residents, and then just in general about the programs. And I honestly went in knowing it's an interview for me, but also remembering that it's my time to interview them, and just remembering that this is a place that I'm going to potentially rank to decide to be at for the next year of my life. And so I really wanted to go in being myself, seeing if I was going to gel with the place I was going to interview at. And I think that really helped me be less nervous in the interviews and not be so anxious and timid and scared. And I really thrive and like small group dynamics. And so interviewing isn't something that's as anxious and as frightening for me. But I definitely think just being well prepared, knowing that you obviously have what it takes to get residency interviews and you have what it takes to be here. So just being proud of yourself that you've gotten this far to begin with, I think is super helpful. Like, you were chosen out of so many candidates to interview for this program, and be proud of that. And then I think as time progresses on, and just some things to help with anxiety overall is kind of, I'm going to echo what Sierra said. If you can work out, like, endorphins is real, guys. Like, definitely, I think it's really helpful to kind of like recenter yourself. I unfortunately am a little bit injured, so I can't work out all of the time, but I'm a little grandma sometimes, so I like to puzzle. And so I puzzle when I want to get my mind off of residency. And so that's something that just helps me kind of keep my brain so active, but it's not active on anything to do with residency related. And then be a crazy calendar person. I mean, I feel like that really helps with anxiety with anything. If you have your calendar organized and you have deadlines of when items are due, and you can make a to-do list every day, that's a manageable to-do list, because it's a never-ending to-do list in residency. I think if you do all of that during residency, it really helps you just stay focused and helps you not be so anxious all the time. But I mean, I'm going to be honest, we all struggle with it. There's different times throughout the year in residency that it's going to get a little bit crazier than it is at other times. And it's just something you have to just grin and bear it, and you'll make it through.
So one thing I will recommend is that once you are done with an interview, do not dwell on whatever stupid things that you said in the interview, because you're going to say some stupid stuff and you're going to be like, gosh darn it, why did I say this? Like, for example, in one of them, I didn't know what to say, so I kept talking about how nice the room was that we were in, because it was a really nice room, and it was just super weird because, like, why would I ever say that? And then I tried to dwell on that. I was like, I can't dwell on the fact that I said that like 3 times. That was dumb, but it's over. So just try to ignore that and try to laugh at the stupid things you do. If you watch my travel video, I forgot my shoes. And I was in Ugg boots and a suit before one of my interviews, and I had to go to Walmart and buy flats because my interview started at like 7:30 in the morning. That was the only place open to buy shoes. Like, stupid stuff is going to happen. You just gotta laugh at yourself and be okay with it, because chances are they will remember you and probably think it's funny if you're able to like laugh it off, and it's fine. It's going to be okay.
Our next question is things to avoid while in a residency interview.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Don't pick your nose. Step 1. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. Things to avoid during while in a residency interview. I would say try not to sound like a robot. Like, that really bothers me. I might not bother other people, but I think it's appropriate.
It bothers other people.
Okay, great.
For sure.
I think it's appropriate to prep for questions that you're going to expect that are situational based, such as name a time you dealt with a difficult customer and how did you handle it? Name a time you had a difficult provider. How did you handle it? Just a couple examples of questions. I think it is great to prep examples. I had about 2 to 3 for my questions, but I wrote like little general notes about them, and I didn't really over practice myself, so I didn't sound genuine during the interviews. I just had the example known well enough that if I got the question, I could automatically know what story I wanted to discuss and was able to then ad lib in the interview. I think sounding like a robot is really obnoxious and it's really annoying, to be honest. Like, it's just, I think everybody knows these are the type of questions that everybody's going to ask. And so if you can still be a genuine person and hold a conversation and hold a dialect, I think that's a critical skill as just an adult to have. Another thing to avoid while on residency interviews, I would wear comfortable shoes, girls. Like, do not wear heels. Like, you're going to be walking, you're going to be touring. I'm clumsy, so I would likely fall on my face in heels, and like that would be really cute on a residency interview. So I would just wear comfortable shoes, and you need to dress professionally, but wear like a comfortable suit so you're just not uncomfortable for the whole day and like pulling at clothes or something like that. Turn your phone off. You don't want your phone to go off during the day, so turn it off. I would turn it off completely, because it's just going to be really horrible if you're in an interview scenario and your phone goes off. That would just not be great.
Like, just please don't be rude to the people you're with. Like, you are going to be with these people throughout your time. So I actually interviewed with my current co-resident at a different location. We both had an interview somewhere else together. So you don't know who out of these people that you're interviewing with you will see again. And we got to know each other and liked each other before we were even co-residents. And so I think that it's good to keep that in mind and just being nice to the people. Don't be rude. Be very grateful the whole time. I just feel like there were some people I was with that were like rude to the people that were interviewing with them. And that's just never the way to act, because people will pick up on that and how you're acting there. And also just try really, really hard not to get in your head about it, especially your number one place. Like, yeah, it's a lot on the line, but if you really want it so bad that you freak yourself out and you screw up the interview, it's not doing yourself any good. So even if that place is like your dream residency, out of every place you're applying, it's the only one you want to go to, don't psych yourself out about it. Don't freak out. Just really try to zone in on it just like you would any of your other interviews and treat it just the same. Because if you try to treat it differently, you're only going to hurt yourself in that situation.
I would echo also the rude thing. I think it's really important to show that you can interact with your peers. And so you'll have moments of downtime on residency interviews where you'll be with potentially the other people that you're interviewing with. And I think it's important to have a conversation with those people and not have it all about that you're trying to fight for the same spot. I think that just shows a little bit poor judgment of character. And so I think it's definitely important to interact with those people and get to know them. I would also say smile while you're on your residency interview. It's a little thing, but a smile can go a long way. And I think that's really helpful when you're in different scenarios and answering different questions. And just basic manners, be really thankful again when you're in these different sections and just grateful to everybody you come in contact with. I think that's really important. And if you have questions for them, for example, like I brought a Padfolio with me to every interview and I had it with me when I went into every interview section. And so
so did I. I did too.
Yeah, if I wanted to write things on it though during the interview, when I was asking them questions, I asked them first if they felt uncomfortable with me writing things down or if they minded if I was writing things down while they were talking, just so they knew that I was still actively paying attention to them, but I just wanted to write down the information for later. So just using your really basic skills that mom and dad taught you, just like common manners, I think is just really important during a residency interview. And then any case-based situation or any situational-based questions you get asked, if it's a situation where something potentially negative happened and you had to overcome it, do not ever shame somebody else who is involved with the situation. You want to always try to spin that positive. You don't want to ever blame somebody else. That just looks poor on behalf of you, because then if you're blaming somebody else during the residency interview, what are they going to think if you come to that institution? The next question is, what occurred during the interview process that you were totally unprepared for?
So the first thing was the director asking me to just teach them something. That threw me off a little bit. I got asked a lot of things that were non-pharmacy. So what was the last book that you read? What do you do for fun outside of pharmacy school? Which I guess that wasn't too surprising. A special or unique fact about yourself, which I have a really good one because I have a bird and a cat named Mr. Meowgie, and that definitely stuck with the people I'm currently with because that was like the first thing that they talked to me about whenever I showed up. So yeah, those were things that kind of, I guess the number of questions I got that were non-pharmacy related was kind of surprising.
I don't really think I got asked any questions I was unprepared for. I think just kind of like personal questions because they want to get to know you as a human being too, besides as a student pharmacist. And so I think those questions were just like, oh yeah, okay, you want to know just about me in general. So it's just not like I couldn't answer them. It was just like, oh, not everything's pharmacy related. And they also really want to make sure that you were able to balance, you have a work-life balance and you're able to handle stress well. So I had a lot of programs ask me like what I did to relieve stress. So just being able to answer those questions I think is important, or what you even do for fun. I had some programs ask me some of my favorite activities to do. So I think those having those answers is important. One thing I think, and likely that you are all hopefully prepared for, but I just want to iterate the importance is if something's on your CV, know it, because they will get asked, you will get asked about it. You'll get asked about questions from a long time ago if it's on your CV and present day. So for my example, I have a lot of research experience that I did in undergrad, and I remember a fair amount of it, but there's like minute details that I'm just like not as fluid in as I used to be when I was doing the research. And so I got asked a lot of questions about the research I did do in undergrad. And so I had to kind of like pull back in my brain some of those experiences. And so I had prepared for it, but probably not to the extent that I should have. And so that's just something of knowledge I want to pass on to you guys.
And to go off of that, one thing that I did to kind of help with that is for my research project that I presented a poster on, I actually printed out a color copy of the poster and had it in my, because I had like a Padfolio as well that I brought. And I had a copy of that. So if anybody asked me that, I actually had a couple. So if I was in a group setting, they could all have one. I would pull it out and I could talk to it a lot easier having that there for me, because it would jog my memory about things that I really wanted to hit home because it was on that poster. So I think that that's always a good thing. Somebody taught me that trick last year. And definitely review those things on your CV because they will ask you about things, especially if they don't know what it is. So if it's something that maybe is your school specific, or there might be a question about what exactly that is, definitely review it.
All right. The last question it looks like we were asked is, how can you prepare for residency if you're not a new graduate? So I think this is a great question. I can't honestly speak from experience, and I know neither can Sierra because we are new grads. So I guess I'll just give my opinion and my advice of how you would prepare for this situation. I think if you're not a new graduate, I think you can really hone in on life experience, and definitely pharmacist experience that you've had out in, whether that be in the hospital, in a community setting, wherever you are. I think you can really pull on those experiences to stand out and show you're unique. If you're involved with any other type of aspect of pharmacy as well as a practicing pharmacist, I think that is really important too. And then just really honing and showing why you really want to do a residency and why you think this would further your growth as a pharmacist. I think that's important because I know a lot of people sometimes when there are pharmacists that have been out there for a while and they want to come back and do a residency, kind of just even that like pay deduction is just like shocking to people sometimes. So just honing really why you want to do this and why you want to further your career with a residency, I think is really important if you're not a new grad. If you're not a new grad and you definitely know like what type of field you want to go into with pharmacy, and that's why you're pursuing a residency, I think it's important to really highlight those as well. But I think just you will definitely have better experiences and better answers to situational based questions as a pharmacist practicing than you might necessarily have as a student on rotation. So I think you can just really be successful in honing on those experiences that you've had.
I think a lot of way it is a benefit to you. It may not seem like it, but you do have actual pharmacist experience. So a lot of the questions that they bring up is like, tell you about a time, and all these students that you're competing against talk about, well, when I was on rotations, well, it's very different when you're a student on rotations and you have backup and you're doing those things versus you're a pharmacist and the decisions you're making are your license on the line. And this is how I handle the situation with my license on the line. I think that that is very, very different. And you can bring a lot of life experiences in that students are not just going to be able to do as easily. And so you're going to have better experiences, whether you are applying for a residency and you've been in a community setting or a hospital setting. It really doesn't matter there. I think that either way, I think you can really hone in on those experiences more so than a student could. So that is all of the questions that we were asked, but we do want to go back to the presentations part because I'm surprised nobody asked about this. And it is very important that you are prepared for those presentations, but also know that whatever type of presentation you're doing, it is very critical that you, one, get the instructions and know exactly what's asked of you, and two, that you prepare and practice that ahead of time. All of my presentations that I had to give were very different. So I had one that was clinical. I had one that was anything non-pharmacy. I had to teach them something in 15 minutes. And then another one that was about me, and there was questions that I had to answer within it, and they gave me like a huge list of questions in only 10 minutes. And so I think they were just trying to figure out how I would flow and make all of this work and kind of combine some of them. So it's just really important that you prepare for those ahead of time. I know if you have a lot of interviews, that makes it difficult. So I would say, like, if you're getting those now, start working on them. I don't care if you're on rotations, it feels like you don't have time. It's better if you start working on those right now.
I didn't have presentations on every interview, but the only presentations I had were clinical based. So definitely I would ad lib, and if the instructions are fairly vague on what you can do and they just want a clinical topic of your choice, I would do it on something that you've done fairly recently, whether that be like a guideline review, or for example, I had just written a review article for the Journal of Family Practice. So I ad libbed off of that and made a presentation off of what I had wrote about for that. For my residency interviews. But definitely, if it's a clinical presentation, do it on something that you're comfortable with and something that you know a lot about, just so you, that can decrease your anxiety and stress on the interview if that part of the interview is not as scary because you know the topic really well. So that's the advice I would give there. But definitely, I agree, read the instructions, ensuring that you stay in the time limit that they're wanting you to give a presentation in, and making sure that you're able to answer their questions. And if you can't, again, please do not guess. Just tell them you don't know and you'll look it up for them, and then making sure you follow through and look up the information that they did ask you on the residency interview by sending them an email or in a thank you card or something like that. I practice in front of pharmacy friends, mentors, and my parents. So I wanted to get a variety of audience, because if you guys haven't caught on by now in this podcast, I talk really fast just in general. So when I present, it's even worse. And so I always have to make sure that even if I'm talking extremely fast, it is audible. And so that's something I did as well.
Yeah, definitely practicing in front of people. And it doesn't have to even be humans. Like, I would practice for my cat sometimes because there's nobody home and I just needed to practice it. And he's a great listener. And so, yeah, you can practice in front of whoever, just saying that out loud, practicing in front of the mirror like you would any presentation, but this is just a higher stakes presentation than probably most of the ones that you've done so far. And so you want to be the least nervous that you can, and that's being prepared for those.
I think another question we kind of got asked, but we didn't hit on because it wasn't fully asked, and something we were going to discuss is what to wear to residency interviews. And so this is not business casual time. This is professional attire. So men, I would wear a suit and tie. Ladies, if you have a suit, I would wear that. If not, I would definitely wear, if you're wearing a skirt, make sure it's long to your knees if possible, or wear a blouse and a blazer. Wow, blazer. If you're a female. So definitely this is the time to wear a blazer or suit. So I had couple dress suits that I wore on residency interviews, but this is the time to shine and be very, very professional in your dress.
Absolutely. I second that. The other thing I would add is if you only have one suit and you have interviews close together, if you're anything like me, like, I sweat a lot. Maybe TMI, but I could not possibly wear two suits back to back. Like, if I had an interview, like there was one day I had an interview on Thursday and had an interview on Friday. there is no way in heck that I could have wore the suit that I wore on Thursday in the interview on Friday. So you can get another one. I actually got my second suit at Target, and it wasn't that expensive, and it was super comfortable. So that is always an option where you just get maybe a little bit cheaper suit. You may have your really nice one that you've kept throughout pharmacy school for those important events, but you may need a second one, and just be mindful of that and the type of person you are, because if you are a nervous sweater, you're going to sweat through your suit and you're not going to want to wear it the second day. Also be mindful of the colors that you are wearing. So this is your black or navy suit type of event. This is not the colorful, pretty suit and blazers that, you know, your top doesn't match your bottom sort of situation. This is as professional as it's going to get.
Some last minute tips, I guess, for residency that we didn't get asked that I think are important to go over from my perspective is when you leave the residency interview, I think it's really important to find some time to sit down and write a pros and cons list. This is going to really help you when you get further on to your ranking of these programs, because the match is to favor you. And so I think it's really important that you have a list written down so you can refer back to that when you're trying to rank all of these programs after interview. So I definitely sat down with the program I was just at and wrote things I liked and things I thought could be improved upon after I had interviewed at each place. And this really helped me when I ranked my programs.
I would say I did something a little bit different. So I think that may work for some people, and I think that is great. For me, I like to talk. So I would call my parents or call my husband or call one of my friends, usually all three. Yes, I would call Kelsey. After every single one, I called Kelsey. She was one of them on my list. And I would just talk about the program to them and kind of get a sense of how I felt about it. I basically would go through after each interview. So my first one, there was one on my list. And then after the second interview, I basically figured out where I was going to put them on my list based on the other interviews that I had like right afterwards, just from those conversations. And then when I talked to those people afterwards, I'm like, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? They all knew how I sounded and how excited I was about certain programs or how I felt then, where I may not have remembered those things. And so they could kind of confirm or be like, I don't know, you seemed really excited about this. And I'd be like, oh yeah. So maybe writing it down would have been good, but I just am not the type of person that can do that right after an interview. So if that is you, find somebody, keep those people consistent that you can go back and refer to when you're finishing up making that rank list. If at the end of your interview, you do not feel like you could live there, whether it is because of the program or because of the actual location itself, and you cannot for the life of yourself envision yourself there, do not convince yourself you need to rank them. Don't do it. I know it is very tempting. I know you may not have a bunch of programs on your list, but you're very busy, you are tired, it is an exhausting year, and if you are not happy where you're at, it is not going to be worth it. You are not going to make it, and if you do, you're going to wish that you hadn't. So you have to keep that in mind. It's okay to not rank someplace. It is perfectly okay. If you don't think that place you can handle because of whatever reason, don't rank them.
Yeah, trust your gut. I think that's important when you go on an interview. If something feels off, trust your gut, definitely. My last piece of advice, and this is not always possible, but it's something I tried to do if it was possible, is majority and a lot of my residency interviews, all of my residency interviews were out of state. And so if I was able to get to the place early, I tried to go to where I was meeting certain people for the interview the day before or hours before, just to ensure I knew where I was going in case there was traffic or something crazy happened, that I could get there as soon as possible and knew exactly where I was supposed to be. This may not be possible for everybody because I know a lot of people just like fly right in and out. But if you do have the opportunity of just like ensuring you know where the hospital is, how to get there, what the traffic patterns are and stuff like that, I think that really helps kind of, again, decrease some of that anxiety on interview day.
And also check the weather. There happened to be a blizzard one day during one of my interviews, and it took like twice as long as to get there, and it was a giant disaster. So if you check the weather ahead of time, it's also going to decrease your anxiety. Instead, you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, there's 7 inches of snow on the ground and I was not prepared. So just be aware of that. The weather is your friend. Check it.
I would agree with that because I didn't get to make it to one of my interviews because of snow, and checked the weather, and I didn't take longer to get to the airport because I live like 2 hours from the closest airport. So there you have it. The weather is your friend.
Or I guess it's kind of our enemy if you really think of it.
I mean, blessing and a curse. It's fine.
The Weather Channel, however.
Yeah.
Get the app. Get the app. All right, I think that is all that we have for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Kelsey, for coming on. It was so great to have you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
And I hope you guys did as well. I thank you for watching. If you like this video, please, please, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button because we are going to be doing more videos. I'm definitely going to be telling you more about what it's like to be a resident in some of my future videos, as well as some clinical things. So keep an eye out for that, as well as if you want to know what it's like to be a resident, you can follow Kelsey and I on Instagram. I'll leave links to both of our pages down below. And thank you guys for watching. Bye.